Most importantly, she has done her MBA at the College of Film and Media. Please join me in welcoming.
Thank you, Abhinav. Hi, everyone. How are you doing today? Good. I'm doing good, thank you. I wish I didn't have to work. That's why I'm here, right? Because I'm working in a great company like Arcadis, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys about it today. And I also want to make sure that I get your expectations from this session up front, so I get to be in a position to address those preemptively during the course of my conversation with you. And then, of course, we'll have a session in the end for questions and answers. So would you like to shout out what you hope to gain out of this interaction today?
Job.
Job. Someone said job.
Sure.
What are the most successful candidates, some of the qualities of those?
Okay. Okay, that's a great one. What else? What do we want to gain out of today's presentation? Of course, this delicious lunch. Please.
The career path is a second shape as your consultant.
Okay, career path of a consultant.
I was also curious because I was looking at the profile as Arcadis. I mean, I was looking that you have in technology, in planning, in process. So how exactly do you, from an MBA, pool of students, how do you segregate who look for what? Do you select the same pool of students for all these lines, or do you go for different?
That's a great question. We can certainly talk about that. Anything else? Yes.
What have you learned during your time at William & Mary that you actually apply to your career now?
Absolutely. I'd love to talk about that. Okay. Yeah. I will remember to be here.
And I know many of them want to hear your own career story as well.
Perfect.
And then
Thank you.
all about Arcadis.
Great.
And how does CMA and MBA join in together?
Join together? Okay.
Because I've been following CMA for past 2 years.
Okay, are you studying for
Chartered in Management Accounting.
a certification as well?
Yeah.
Great. Great.
Now, how does that work out into you?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure you're seeing a lot of overlap in subjects, but
Yeah.
we can talk about that.
Opportunities for international students.
International student? I'm an international student.
And day in the life.
Day in the life. I love it.
You guys have any rotational program?
Okay, rotational programs. Great! That's a fantastic set of questions. And I think most of it we can cover, as part of our conversation. We can keep it organic. I have a bunch of slides, but we can keep it conversational, and feel free to stop me at any point in time if you have any questions or if you just want to say something. I know I used to want to do that quite a lot. I still do, so here we go. I just want to share a little bit of my personal story. My husband and I both graduated from William & Mary. We walked together. I was pregnant with twins at the time I did my camp, I think in this very room or maybe the other room, with Todd Moradian and Lisa Seitman and all the rest of the awesome faculty who used to remind me not to have my babies on the floor. That was huge. I couldn't fit behind the steering wheel. I used to drive up from Newport News to Williamsburg, and it used to be an effort to get in here. And then, because that was such a special journey with, going to Smithfield Foods and Centrum with Martin Agency, that was our camp. That year, I had my babies in November, and that's my graduation picture, where they were just 6 months old. And they were wearing William & Mary jerseys, so that was really sweet and really memorable to me. I think William & Mary holds a really special place in my heart. And that's them now, more or less. 6 years old, doing great, getting ready for their 6th birthday. So William & Mary has a special connection to me, and I want to make sure that I give back in whatever way I can. All right, Arcadis. Most of you might have been on our website already to see what Arcadis does, what we do, where we are, what our market presence looks like, what our core capabilities are. But here it is. We are a global company, and our market is anything which is in the realm of natural and built environment. So it could be seas, oceans, lakes, reservoirs, dams, bridges, people, organizations, wastewater treatment plants, financial institutions. So we have a huge market presence. We are a design and consulting firm, and we are working in partnership with our clients to deliver exceptional outcomes, guaranteed outcomes, with cost certainty, risk resilience, and schedule certainty. And what do? We do design consulting, we do engineering, we do program management, project management. We'll get into what our capabilities are in just a little bit. But we provide all these services primarily to 4 business lines: the water business line in which I sit, the infrastructure business line, the environmental business line, and the buildings business line. And we have over $3 billion in revenue, and we have 28,000 people worldwide. At the core of what we do is our communication principles. We put our clients in the center of everything. We are a very client-focused and a customer-centric company. And we put our knowledge to work by making sure that we are listening to what our clients are saying, anticipating what they want, what their issues are. Sometimes they wouldn't have even realized that they are going to face that regulatory change, or the customers are thinking the way they are thinking and they need to ramp up or augment to adapt to what the changing marketplace is looking like. So we put our clients first, we put our knowledge to work by making sure that the clients are not surprised and they are prepared to face the change that's going on in the world around them, by looking at the big picture always. And our communication principles also mean that we collaborate. We are constantly making sure that we are not working in a silo, whether it's with our clients or whether it's internally. We put our knowledge to work by making those actionable information for our clients. So it's not just enough for us to know all the regulations, to know how to design a pump station or how to make a capital asset last in its life. We also want to make sure that we are giving strategies and actionable plans for our clients to make that real in a way that makes more sense for our clients. And we have a passion for delivering outcomes that are guaranteed, that make sure that the clients stay successful in whatever adventure they are out to achieve. So this is our story, and you'll see this on our website. From climate change and rising sea levels to rapid urbanization, the pressure on our changing environment is immense, and our organizations, our clients, are constantly changing to adapt to this. And we, at Arcadis, we help navigate this complexity by maximizing space in cities, making wastelands habitable, by providing design reviews, by providing business advisory services, making sure that the clients are always focused on improving the quality of life in their built and natural environments. An interesting story about our brand. Does anyone know what our brand stands for? What animal it is? I mean, it's right here. But were you curious when you looked up the company? And what is that? Is that a dinosaur? Did you think whether it was a dinosaur?
Salamander.
A lot of people thought it was a dinosaur. Yes, it's a salamander. It's a fire salamander. And I was particularly drawn to this story because I did my branding camp as well, and I love brands. I love the stories the brands tell. And our brand, Arcadis, is derived from the word Arcadia, which in Greek mythology is the finest place to live on earth. And our symbol, the fire salamander, is actually very, very comfortable to live both on land and on water, and it always turns out finds this spot in its habitat that has the perfect balance between both ecosystems. So it's scientifically proven that the fire salamander gravitates to that habitat, and that is where we want to be, where we are living in perfect harmony with our built natural environment, with water, with air, with earth, with everything that's around us. That's the premise of all the projects we work on. And we recently went through a rebranding where it used to look like a dinosaur and now it looks a little bit more stylized. It's orange, it's retaining the Dutch heritage. We are originally a Dutch company, and it's a little bit more stylish and sexy, if you ask me. And it brings out what we do, design and consultancy for natural and built assets. So that's our brand journey from the 1990s to the 2015. A global reach. I was talking to Mike earlier today, talking to the dean just a few minutes ago, and they were really interested in knowing that Arcadis has a global reach. We have almost 30,000 people worldwide, 400 plus offices around the world. You see our spread there. We are in 40 plus countries. We have 30,000 plus active projects that are currently ongoing. We have a lot of offices in the United States, some in Europe, some in India, some in Latin America. Most, we have a heavy presence in United Kingdom and Asia. So there's a lot of opportunity for cultural growth if you're working in Arcadis, because you're working with people from all around the world. And there's an opportunity for travel, there's an opportunity for knowledge sharing with our various programs. I was telling these guys earlier today, I have an employee who moved in to Virginia Beach from Michigan, and then she went on this Global Shapers program where they got together with 100 other young professionals from around Arcadis, and they met at this location, a central location. Sometimes it's Paris, last year it was Chicago, this year it's Argentina. So they met at this location and they brainstormed about cool ideas on how they can, how organizations should adapt to change. And she met these amazing people from Brussels and London and India and all those people who came into the Global Shapers program. And now she's going to be vacationing in India this year, towards the end of the year. On her way back, she's going to be stopping over at Brussels and London to work with Arcadis folks over there to do some knowledge sharing and to actually work on projects, because she built those networks when she met them at the Global Shapers program. So cool stuff. I wish I could do that. I can't leave my kids and go to London, but our strategy. How do we do what we do? What's our roadmap? We have a three-pronged strategy of sustainable growth, of performance, and collaboration. And sustainable growth is happening through expanding our existing clients, expanding the core client base, expanding our core competencies, focused growth on areas that we know is, we're going to get the bang for the buck, and mergers and acquisitions. Obviously, we take over to grow in areas where we know we're weak or we need the fortification. That's what M&A is all about. And then, as far as our performance and collaboration is concerned, and I don't want to spend too much time on this slide, it's all generated towards value. It's focused towards generating the maximum value for our clients, because there are some things that the clients are just not willing to pay for. Most of our clients are private companies, some of our clients are public companies, some are federal. They are bound by budgets, they are bound by restrictions that they have, that their shareholders have, their ratepayers have, their councils and boards have. And they're not willing to pay for innovation, although it's cool and new and the best thing for them. They have gaps. So we need to make sure that we are providing them what is value as perceived by them, and not what is value as perceived by us. And that's sometimes a hard sell, and that's where the intricacy lies. We address the world's most pressing challenges, whether it's the urban sprawl related to globalization, it's climate change, adapting our organizations, rising sea levels, building sea walls to adapt to that, coastal resiliency, you name it. Asset productivity, how do you extend the useful life of your assets on the ground, whether it's a pipe or a bridge or a pump station, or it could be people. How do you increase asset productivity? How do you create sustainable solutions that work with the environment? You're not putting a factory or a bridge and it's polluting the environment. You don't want that. That's not a sustainable solution. How do you make your money work in a sustainable and economically, socially responsible way? Energy solutions, natural resources, scarcity of resources. We know that, right? And that's happening quite a lot with water, with energy, with power. And of course, mobility. We are in the mobility space, transportation space as well. Our pledge to sustainability is fostered through our relationship with these two organizations. One is the Global Compact Initiative, which is a global corporate sustainability initiative that Arcadis is part of, which not only allows us to participate with the best of the best in the world, it keeps us honest that way, but it makes sure that we are essentially putting our feet to the fire and saying we are going to abide by the Global Compact principles of respect, support, elimination of all forms of forced or compulsory behavior. We are going to promote corporate sustainability. So it holds our feet to the fire in terms of certain sustainability initiatives. And of course, we are part of the UN Habitat, which is a United Nations program that promotes urbanized living, but in a corporate, socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable way. So I invite you to actually go up on the Arcadis website, look up the Global Compact Initiative, the Shelter, and the UN Habitat program. The Shelter program sponsors, in collaboration with UN Habitat, a lot of trips to support rehabilitation post-natural disasters. There was a team of people who went to Nepal recently to support with the reconstruction of villages and everything after the earthquake. A friend of mine went to Haiti to do exactly that. And there's a lot of opportunity for us to give back pro bono to the community, especially through sponsored programs like this. And I think that's one of the biggest, I mean, all presentation and everything aside, candidly, that's one of the biggest connections for me with Arcadis. I mean, every company has work and exciting stuff and you get to learn. But with a global company, with a company like Arcadis, you get all these real opportunities to make a difference, not just with your project work, but also with some of the connections and the outreach and the pro bono work that you're doing with your associations, with things like this. That makes it real. That makes it meaningful. Yeah, so this is our expertise in line with the maturity in the market. We make sure that we are in there in the entire asset life cycle, whether it's planning an asset, creating an asset, operating an asset, or redefining an asset. It could be that you have already an operations going on, but you want to make sure that you are streamlining it, improving it, making sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do, more for less, right? Or less with more. And making sure that you're getting the return on investment that you're expecting on every asset that you have on the ground. It could be people, it could be machines, it could be anything. So we are there in the entire asset life cycle. And we are changing our strategy based on whether it's an emerging market or a mature market. Some of the top words have gotten truncated there, but the four marketplaces we are in. We're in the infrastructure market, we are in the water market, we're in the buildings market, and in the environment market. So what exactly do we do there? Infrastructure. We design and we help operate world-class intelligent and integrated design solutions, specializing in stations, airports, tunnels, bridges, ports, and other large projects. And we do this through rail and road transportation solutions, airport solutions, industrial solutions, smart and green infrastructure solutions, and mining solutions. And some of the examples of the projects we've been involved, the design of the airport in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. We have a global mining client in Mozambique. I haven't worked on any of these cool projects. I wish I had, right? I'll tell you the projects I worked on. But traffic management, if you guys are interested in traffic management, I know a lot of people have some logistics experience, supply chain experience, industrial engineering experience, right? Some of you may be engineers. It could be a great fit for those people who have the technical bench strength, who have the interest in doing, putting their technical experience to work in the world of business. We are primarily an engineering company. I'm here, an MBA student, working in an engineering company, and I'll tell you the parallels between the worlds of engineering and business, but this is a perfect intersection of that. Metro line expansion in Santiago, Chile. So you see the breadth and the depth of projects that have that Arcadis has worked on in the infrastructure division. In the water division, that's close to where I am, we provide world-class water supply and wastewater treatment system services. So we help design wastewater treatment, we help replenish groundwater sources. We work with wastewater treatment and purveyors of water like the City of Virginia Beach, City of Williamsburg, City of Richmond, who actually provide clean water to you, who take dirty water away from your homes, they treat it, and they release it back into the natural environment. We work with those kind of institutions to help them run their operations better, to help them do their capital planning, to help them do their customer service, billing, you name it, their organizational stuff. Yes, Abhi?
Is this all pre-bid or post-bid?
Post-bid. And sometimes we help them with the bids as well. We help them generate the bids. We are their asset management consultant, for instance, and they want some kind of a pipeline expansion. We would provide the technical oversight for that expansion, but we would work with other vendors, contractors, who would actually do the boots on the ground work. Same thing with IT implementations, where say they're buying an enterprise resource planning system, and they are in the market for something like SAP. We can customize it for them, but we stay vendor neutral. We don't want to customize it. If they want SAP, we will work with SAP to get them their services, but we would do their management consulting for them. So it's a little bit of both. So yeah, we do water supply and treatment, conveyance, program management, that's my baby there. Business advisory, that's too. Water for industry, making sure that the industry, which needs a lot of water, is using the water in a sustainable way, in a way that makes more sense for the organization. Water management through the quality, safety, and essentially being there in the entire water cycle, right from the time the water hits the consumer for use till the time it goes away from the consumer's realm. And some of the water projects that we have worked on is groundwater protection in Brest in Germany, water quality preservation in Shenzhen River in China, crossness treatment scheme in London, UK, desalination in San Diego, USA. I mean, this tells you that you can work as a water engineer or a water business advisory person like me, and you can be essentially working on any project around the world. It doesn't have to be because I'm in Virginia Beach, I work only on Virginia Beach projects. My playing field can be the globe, and that is an exciting thing as well. Environment. I also work with the environmental division. I manage the data management program, the business intelligence program for Bank of America, where we are making sure that Bank of America is staying on top of the regulatory requirements. They have a lot of governance needs. They have a lot of reporting needs that we are making sure that they are getting through our process expertise, through our solution expertise, through our systems expertise. And the environmental division is actually housing that project. So it doesn't matter that I'm in the water business line, I can work on projects that the environmental division is bringing, as a client development thing as well. So primarily, what else does the environmental division do? They do sustainable product development, like we've done in Syngenta Europe, that's product compliance, making sure that in the product life cycle, every interchange between the supplier through to the consumer is done in a responsible, sustainable, compliant way. So the company doesn't have to go through the obligations, sometimes financial, sometimes legal, to compensate the customer if something is wrong and non-compliant in the product life cycle. We work with GM, we work with Wells Fargo, we work with Home Depot, we work with a lot of retail chains in that market. For landfill remediation, sometimes industries pollute the environment, there can be accidental spills, there can be intentional landfill constructs because of pollutants and contaminants being put into the landfills, which need to be remediated before that site becomes habitable again, or before that site becomes fit for industrial and commercial use again. And Arcadis manages those large remediation projects. Sometimes we do the remediation ourselves, sometimes we work with subs. We do environmental assessments and regulatory compliance management, yes.
So you mentioned that Arcadis is working mostly in post-bid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So your clients are mostly what, contractors or the owners of those projects?
Owners.
Owners.
Yeah, post-bid and pre-bid. So we help the client. So you could be the owner of a large financial corporation, and you could come to me and you could say, you're planning to buy a site that was the site that a dry cleaner was using until recently, and therefore it has a lot of contaminated groundwater and contaminated soil, and you need me as Arcadis to remediate the groundwater and the soil before you can purchase the site, because you don't want to get into a situation where your employees are put at risk to hazardous contaminants once you're on the site, right? Or you don't want the regulator slapping a fine on you saying that you have a hazardous environment for your employees. Therefore, you would work with Arcadis to remediate the site, right? And I may be your contractor, I may have a long-standing contractual relationship with you, or you may just hire me to do it. And if I have a long-standing relationship with you, I might do it myself. I might get someone else to do it, but I would provide the technical oversight. But the primary relationship, you'll be paying me the bill, and I will be helping you remediate your site.
So basically, Arcadis is more similar to a project manager in those.
Project manager, implementer, design consultant, business advisory consultant. So we're basically your consultant. Yeah. In the building space, we plan, design, create, operate, and regenerate buildings. And we bring in concepts of green, lean, LEED, sustainable, everything. I'm an envisioned sustainability professional, which means that we are always looking for ways in which we can use sustainable design, sustainable products, and sustainable infrastructure when we are working with our clients on projects. Of course, there are components of project management, cost management, you may be interested in this, and program management when we are doing our large buildings. So the value propositions here are business advisory, master planning and scheduling, performance-driven design, where we are looking at quantifiable performance and not just economic, but also social and environmental. That's a huge thing, the triple bottom line, right? And commercially led program management, where we are assuring the delivery of planned business benefits. That's a big thing, guaranteed outcomes, because you have an incremental amount of dollar impact when even there is a slight slippage in schedule in some of these large projects. And of course, there are contract solutions where you enable the avoidance, mitigation, resolution of complex construction and engineering disputes through your risk management services. Some of the iconic building projects, design of the Nordstrom stores, right? Through our design group, the Callison RTKL, our new CEO, John Jastrom, he calls himself JJ. He is from Callison. So Amazon headquarters expansion in Seattle, Callison was involved with that. The Hyatt in Shenzhen, China, and even the flagship project that you see in the beginning of the slide, that will come back again in the cover sheet, is the Garden City, the Garden by the Bay in Singapore, where we help them design the city's garden and rebrand, because Singapore wanted to rebrand their habitable space, their green space, and be called not just a garden city, but they wanted to be called a city in a garden. And we helped them design that. We provided cost assurance and cost management services. So pretty cool thing. We have multinational clients. We partner with the world's largest multinationals. Bank of America is there, Petronas, Chevron, Honeywell, Philips, BMW, Ford, GM. You see some of the big names over there. And we might work with them in various capacities, but it gives us a wealth of knowledge of not just the client's problems and how we solve them, but it's a constant learning experience. How are they running their businesses? Are they ahead of the curve, behind the curve? What are they thinking? Are they innovating? What are their leaders worried about? What keeps them up at night? I think that's a very humbling and a very, sometimes it keeps me up at night to know that they are thinking about us as their solution providers And what do we know, right? We don't know much. It's a very humbling thought. All right, one of you asked a question, how are you putting your MBA to work, right? So it's an engineering company. We have a lot of engineering projects. If I was an engineer, I'd be designing a pump station, I'd be designing a bridge, a dam, I'd be having fun putting my engineering to work. How do I put my MBA to work? As soon as I got into Arcadis, I worked with the city of Virginia Beach. They are a water treatment, conveyance, and distribution purveyor. I, as a city of Virginia Beach resident, pay my bills, my water bill and my sewer bill to the city of Virginia Beach. And what I did with Virginia Beach was Arcadis had an asset management program with them. And I helped with the creation of the strategic plan for Virginia Beach. Strategic plan is a roadmap of how they accomplish their objectives and how they actually keep honest while they're accomplishing those objectives. So what are the metrics that you are using to track those objectives? How are you putting that as an actionable plan for all your managers who are supposed to be accomplishing those objectives? So that kind of a thing. So I did some performance-driven planning for them. I also helped write business requirements and do the testing and the solution design for a lot of cool dashboards, data analytics dashboards that we built for the city of Virginia Beach, right? Did a lot of capital improvement planning for them, wrote some business cases, helped design a solution where they are now doing their capital improvement planning, and that's business, right? On their enterprise reporting system. So the interplay of business and technology right there, business and engineering right there. Alexandria Renew Enterprises, one of my most favorite projects, where right now we are helping them revamp their customer service strategy, their billing strategy, the procure to pay procurement system to make it more seamless for the operators, to make it more efficient, to make it more lean, to give the customer, who is Karen Palanch, the CEO of Alex Renew, the most bang for the buck, lowest cost per invoice, so she can do more with less, right? Go up on her website, see what she's doing. She's doing some pretty cool stuff. Fairfax Water, I helped them with their strategic plan. Helped them do some metrics implementation. We have, like you have the balance scorecard. You guys know the balance scorecard? It's a strategic planning tool. It's a performance management tool. We help them with some of the concepts using the balance scorecard, effective utility management attributes, which the EPA has published specific for the water industry. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge that you get working with these organizations, but there's also a lot of academic improvement that I personally got working with these organizations, because all these were not easy projects. I just couldn't go there and say, yeah, this is easy, I'll do it. I needed to make sure that I knew what I was doing, because I had to learn about their organization. I had to learn about what they do. I didn't know engineering. I didn't know the technology of wastewater treatment or water purveyance or distribution systems. I didn't know anything. So I had to learn that, first of all. I had to see how a balanced scorecard would be applicable to a wastewater treatment facility. It's applicable to Hewlett-Packard, Dell, Microsoft, sure. The technology industry is ahead of the curve in terms of innovation and management principles and organizational practices. They've done Six Sigma long back. These guys are doing Six Sigma now. Lean is a new concept for them now. We did that 8 years ago in HP. So we need to be able to translate what we know to these guys and make sure that it's relevant for them, but at the same time, take the time to understand their problems. Bank of America, that's my project, where I'm doing regulatory compliance management right now, doing some scorecard metrics for them. They want to know how they're doing for the last quarter on their compliance. And the compliance is managed through various questions that they have to answer, like, am I having enough permits? Are my tanks registered? Are my trainers certified? They have a lot of requirements and they want to make sure that all those requirements are being met, so I manage the data for them on that one. making sure that there's process governance. You were asking about how does process and technology and everything that I'm doing post MBA helping me, or how has my MBA helped me do all that? It's what you learn in your enterprise engineering. It's what you learn in your operations planning. It's what you learn in your branding, right? We did that for Alexander. So it's fun stuff. I did some best practice implementation for fleet, for their cars and trucks and cranes and heavy equipment for El Paso water utilities. So I've been traveling quite a bit too. So it's not just that I've been working in Virginia Beach, right? I want to stop here and ask you guys, in the subjects that you study in your MBA, how do you think you can put your MBA to work in a company like Arcadis? What are the parallels that you see based on what you already know about Arcadis?
Well, I guess because we just took accounting.
The exam is still in the
It's just the first two subjects we had.
You can always talk about the
Yeah, of course.
managing the finances and
Yeah,
looking at the balance sheets.
I
and
do
whatnot.
that. I do that for BOA. I need to know how invoicing works. I need to know what's in my debits and my credits. I need to know how to void and reissue an invoice. I don't do it actually. I'm not an invoice specialist. But if I'm looking at the data and the activity and spend for a month for Bank of America, I need to know all the transactions. And if something's not synchronized, I need to be able to know where the break has happened. And my accounting knowledge is going to be really useful there, right?
Keeping on that theme of exams that we just took, organizational behavior, when you're doing strategic planning,
Yeah.
you have to understand organizations, the culture of them, how they work, and like how to best implement your plan within those
Absolutely.
frameworks.
Absolutely. We were asked for a San Diego client to do a cultural assessment questionnaire where they said they want to know what the culture of their organization is. And they wanted us to ask them. Sometimes they use the consultant to do the dirty work and send the message to the employees. They use us for that, trust me. So they wanted us to find out the pulse of the organization through the cultural survey. And I was thinking of my organizational behavior professor all along. Sometimes we do the MBTI assessment as well for employees for organizational improvement. That's my, I'm an organizational assessment, operational excellence consultant, so that's my favorite topic.
And there's data analysis. I think that's a part and parcel of everything that we do right now. We need to make sure what are the current trends, what are the past trends, and we have to predict for the future. So that's
perfect. That's perfect. Predictive analytics. That's exactly right. You never know when it's going to be useful for you. Trust me, that's what I'm living and breathing right now with Bank of America. They want to look at, and I'll give you a great example. They wanted to look at all the complaints their associates were making about their health problems, right? We track that as a metric. How many associate health complaints have come in for Bank of America? And why do they want to track that? They want to track that to see if they can take any proactive action to make those complaints go away, to minimize them, to mitigate the financial, legal impact associated with them. So we track the root causes of why those complaints are coming. Is it because I'm having asthma because the AC vent is blowing too hot air or too cold air? Or is it because there is mold in the building and it's triggering my allergies and I'm feeling really giddy? So there are a lot of root causes that we identify. And the primary root causes that came up when we did that analysis that you just talked about was that they have old buildings which have leaky roofs, which have bad plumbing, which leads to a lot of leaks inside the buildings, which leads to a lot of mold inside the building. So fix the roofs, fix the external perimeters so there is no water leakage and water intrusion, reduce the mold, engage mold contractors. They put the data to work that way.
I have a question actually. Can I?
Sure.
Okay, so the recent projects that you've been talking to, that's at Bank of America and Chevron, and maybe the one in San Diego as well, cultural assessment, looks like they are shifting away from your core business of infrastructure. While what's the synergy between those new projects and the core reasons?
Well, you would think that because that's how I put my MBA to work. But if I was an engineer, I'd probably be working on some of those infrastructure projects that you talked about. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not qualified to design a bridge. But I'm qualified to design a strategic plan. I'm qualified to design an organizational strategy that will make sure that all the employees are speaking the brand language of Alex Renew Enterprises, right? That's what we do as MBAs. But my husband, he's an engineer. He did his MBA, right? And he is actually now designing a pump station for the city of Virginia Beach. So he puts his infrastructure hat on, he puts his business hat on, and he does some pretty cool stuff. I had a question or something over there. This side? Yes?
I was just going to think of, needless to say, with our econ class, one of the big things that we're working on is estimating demand for a company's products, and possibly if you're being asked to do that, you could regression techniques to model demand based upon the different needs.
Absolutely. Estimating the demand of water that consumers would like to use, that's a big thing. And that drives a lot of rate models that we work on for our clients, right? We want to make sure that we are charging our rate payers the right amount of money based on the estimation of their water usage needs, that we use those regression models that you were talking about to build. So it's not, everything is useful, guys, trust me, pay attention in class, because really when you go out in the market, you're going to have to use it, really. Yeah.
I would like to know how international students can benefit the company.
Benefit the company?
Yeah.
How the international student can benefit the company?
Yes.
Oh, if you work for a global company like Arcadis, they are looking for people like you and me, because our clients are global. There's oftentimes a language barrier, right? I talk to people in India, I talk to people in Europe, I talk to people in China, and sometimes I'm more successful, trust me, when I'm talking to people in India than my program manager Dennis is, because I understand their accent, right? And some people have a neutralized accent, some people don't. And people in India, they relate to me because my name is Supriya. I may be more American than Dennis, but it's just a cultural thing. And how do we benefit? We bring in the global perspective. When we talk to clients, they look at us and they think, oh, she has traveled the world. She knows more than what's just in her, in her state or in her country. A lot of MBA students are global. You guys go to Asia and you go to, Paris, and you bring in that global perspective. I think a lot of business schools are trying to remove those national and regional boundaries and be global in their nature, in their essence. But I think as an international student, you bring in the sensitivity, the perspective, the openness to listen, to receive, to perceive. I think you are at a great advantage.
But to be honest, I think most of your customers are American customers, right? American companies?
My customers. But they're global companies too. They're American companies, but they're global companies. Bank of America is in India, in Europe, in China. It's everywhere. And that's what I was talking about. I speak to global people all the time. El Paso is America, but they have a very heavy Spanish influence because they're closer to the Mexico border. And they relate to me a lot more than they would relate to a white American, because they know that, somehow they feel that I can relate to them, I can understand their problems. It may be that my white American colleague would do a much better job than me, but I don't know, I go in with that level of trust with them, because if I'm talking to a Spanish guy, he would naturally gravitate to someone who is Spanish too, right? I don't know. Those kind of boundaries hardly matter, but if they ought to matter, they do.
So for international students, does it have to start here in the United States and then you would travel abroad, or you can start abroad and...
You could travel abroad. You could travel abroad, you could start abroad. You can apply to an Arcadis India company. You could apply to an Arcadis Belgium. You could apply to an Arcadis Europe, wherever. And you could travel abroad too, like if you're here and if you're interested in international opportunities, you can certainly throw your hat in the ring, and it's something that can be considered. So there are opportunities.
I have a question. It's not related to the international thing, but kind of trying to figure it out. You have worked in a lot of cross-functional teams. So since these are very different domains, like in the water and in the buildings and transportation, so are some sort of trainings provided to the employees so that they can fit into those particular domains, or is it something you have to work on yourself?
Absolutely both, a little bit of both. There is something called Training Central in our company organization, in the company intranet, where if I'm onboarding a new employee or if I'm a new employee, my supervisor will assign to me all the trainings that I would possibly need to be successful in my job. Like if I'm working on a regulatory kind of a job, I would get some trainings on all the regulations that are out there in the market. Or if I'm working on indoor air quality issues, I would get the Bank of America standard training on indoor air quality regulations, processes, and techniques for indoor air quality. Or if I'm working on business intelligence, I'd probably do some tutorials on Power Pivot and BI tools and SharePoint and SSRS and all that stuff. That would make me hit the ground running when I'm ready to start my job. So that's part of what Arcadis provides to you. At the same time, it's a little bit of homework, right? So if I'm working on a new client, I take the time to study up about that client. It's like going to a class or going to an exam or making a presentation. Study up about the client, study up about the issues they're having. And if I'm proposing a new concept to them, I would study up about that as well. And try to do some trainings, which sometimes the company will pay for. Most times the company will pay for. Recently, I went to a customer service training to help me talk the talk with Alex Renew. And the company sponsored the whole training. But it's mostly the initiative of the employee, right? Sometimes the employer, the manager, if you have a good manager, they'll say, you got to do this, this is great. But the onus is on the employee. Yes, I'll be right over. Go ahead.
Okay. Could you talk a little bit about how the company's finance department work as the role in your company? Like, is there like a centralized department in your company taking care of all the finance issues, or it's like you work in a project team and the team has people from different departments working together, and so how is that working?
Project teams, definitely. For individual project management, managing the project finances, managing the profit margins of each project. But they all are accountable. They work as matrix project teams, right? They don't have a reporting relationship. During the course of the project, they work together and then they disband, right? But during the course of the project, whatever profit margins they are making, the project manager is responsible to report that to the project controller, who reports to the finance team, right? So they want to make sure that the bottom line is being managed properly. The top lines are being managed properly. The top lines coming from the revenue, the bottom lines coming from the cost management, right? The top line is being managed through the client development team. They're bringing in the money. We delivery teams, we're using the money. So there's a lot of that interplay. And it's amazing to look at that interplay in a large organization. And my husband just moved from Arcadis. He moved to another company, a smaller niche boutique consulting firm, and he sees the differences of how a large company and a small company function. Yes.
Do you have a formal internship program?
Yes.
I don't know if you're going to talk about that later.
Well, I can, but yes, we do have a formal internship program. And we work with students who come in and help us out with projects for the summer. And then that's a great way. I was just telling Ryan and Mike and the dean, that's a great way for us to get to know our employees before we hire them. 9 times out of 10, these interns decide to come back and work for us. So it's a great opportunity. It's a win-win for both the interns and for us.
And are those
Is that a central US location where the internships are, or just anywhere?
Anywhere. It could be in the Virginia Beach office, the Arlington office, the Richmond office, the San Diego office, San Francisco office. It could be where the need is. That's an important thing, right? I don't want to have an intern, not have them do anything. That's a big thing for us. We need to make sure that our employees are always busy. They are staying engaged in professional, client-related activities, and they're not just, sitting down every day and not doing much. Billability or financial billability is a big thing. So we want to make sure our interns are staying busy. Of course, their billability goals are not going to be as high as mine, but their billability goal would be there. We need to make sure that they are finding the right thing to do and the right opportunity. Things like that.
Can you talk about the competitive landscape and who's the biggest player in the space?
Competitive landscape for Arcadis. We compete in, as you know, in various markets, right? So we have different competitors in various markets. In the environmental market, we have ERM, who is one of our competitors. In the water market, we have a whole lot of boutique consulting firms. My husband's firm, Hazen and Sawyer, is a competitor for Arcadis. So we are not going to discuss work at home, right? So there's Black & Veatch, and there's CH2M Hill, and there's Montgomery Watson, all those kind of people in the water space. In the technology space, sometimes we compete with SAP, sometimes we compete with Invensys. In all these technology solution providers, like I was telling you, I think, Abhinav, we provide custom technology solutions. And I think the strategy for our company is to move away from some of the solutions and be a consulting partner rather than an implementation. We don't want to code. We don't want to be in the business of coding. We want to be in the business of technology solutioning. So we're trying to get away from some of the guys who know what they're doing better than us. So there are a lot of competitors in different markets.
But it doesn't sound like there's one competitor who has your suite of solutions.
No, it depends on which.
I noticed that you had a lot of information on Asia and Europe and the US. With the emerging markets in Africa, has there been a movement, especially with environmental sustainability and water? Have you moved into that market at all, or do you have a large presence there?
We don't have a large presence there, but we do have a presence there. And yes, with the growing need for habitable solutions, urban solutions, and we see a lot of that in Africa, we see a lot of that in India, we see a lot of that in some parts of Europe and China. We do have a strategy to work on clients who have the maximum need, work with clients who have the maximum need. And we are working, if not as consulting work, we work through our shelter program or through our UN Habitat affiliation, our Lovenclaw affiliation, to make sure that we are showing our presence in those markets, doing some of the pro bono work sometimes in that market, and then making sure that there is industry leadership there. And we are represented in the industry leadership over there. Yeah. Yes?
How big your business is in the Middle East, and what kind of industries are you involved in that part?
We help with the oil and natural gas in the Middle East. And I think we've also done some business consulting and technology solutions for the city of Oman. And we've done that for Dubai. Burj Khalifa design assurance was done by Arcadis. So if you're interested in that particular market, I can get you connected to that particular market sector leader. And the same goes with every one of you. If you're interested in a certain business line, or you're interested in a certain market or a certain region, I invite you to go up to our website, right? It's pretty modularized. You can see if you want to work in the environment or the water or infrastructure or something else. You go in there, there is a contact of the market sector leader. You can contact them via LinkedIn, or you can work through me or through Adam Gersh. I'll leave you his contact information, his university relations liaison, and he can get you connected. So you can at least start having a conversation, feel them out, see what's out there, and work through some of the connections you already have. So I'm going to just close with this section. How are we doing on time?
We're doing fine.
We're doing
That's
fine?
2 o'clock.
Oh. This is a good section. We've, I think, covered most of things that are going to be in this section, but just some food for thought. The talent that we seek, of course, qualifications and skill set is important in our research and search and the whole wooing of a candidate. But what's more important is the right values, the right culture, the mindset, the attitude, the stick-to-itiveness. I don't know if you guys have heard that term. I like to use it a lot. It's not always exciting. There is work. Sometimes that's boring. Okay? That's work too. Never say no to work. Never say no to projects because it's not cool and new and sexy. Sometimes the non-sexy stuff can be just as interesting, and you've got to do the time to get to the fun stuff. And that's an attribute of perseverance and endurance and tolerance, right? Everyone loves to do exciting work, but how can you find excitement even in the non-exciting work? That's something to think about. So we want the bright sparks. Of course, we want the creative geniuses. We want people who not just want to do something for themselves and hone their skills and build their resumes. Heck, I want to do that too. I want to build my resume always. But I also want to make sure that I'm doing something to change the world for the better. I think that's a bigger sell for me. I do data for the Bank of America. It's not rocket science. It's data analytics. It's predictive analytics. It's project management. It's knowing where the risk is and addressing the risk. It's mitigating the risk. But I'm doing something good for a large company. I am being there for my project manager and making sure that on my watch, nothing ever will slip, right? That's what I go to bed at night feeling good about, the work that I do for Bank of America. So I think that's something that you need to think about, every one of us needs to think about as we look at employee development and why we should work for Arcadis. 10 reasons to start your career at Arcadis. You get to work with the best clients, you work with the best people, global company, a lot of opportunities, not just in the United States, but around the world. Be part of a team. We are a very team-oriented company. Everyone gets to play a part, everyone plays a part, everyone's voice gets heard, and everyone gets to present in front of a client. I have a guy who I work with who never tells you that you're on next, right? In a presentation, he doesn't tell you, you're presenting slide A, B, and C, or 8, 9, and 10. So only you are ready for that slide? No, he just calls on you whenever, in front of the client. So you need to know exactly what's happening in the project, what's in all your slides. You need to know the intricacies of everything, just so you're ready to go. You see the world, you travel, you make vital connections, you use those connections, sometimes make friendships for life. You enjoy the spotlight because, like I said, you may be presenting in front of a client, sweating it out, or you might be in your element because you've done your homework and you know what you're talking about, and the client is nodding and appreciating what you're saying, and that's a high. Guys, for me, it's a high, Improve the quality of life. Get to something awesome, right? You get to build something. You get to change the world. And if you have the passion, if you have the drive, you will do it, You can choose to be disengaged, or you can choose to be out there and engaged. And I know as William and Mary students, you're all going to want to do it. You want to own it, you want to make a difference, you want to change the world, and that's why you're here, right? Work hard and play hard. It's not just a boring consulting firm or a boring engineering firm. It's a playground for creativity, for innovation, for talent, for communication. I mean, it's cool and new. I think that's one of the reasons why I love being at Arcadis. There are cool and new stuff that's coming up every day, and that's going to keep you excited. You pursue your passion. You build your resume. You're part of thought leadership teams. I'm part of a couple of thought leadership teams where I'm working to create collateral and functional knowledge for Arcadis for the environmental compliance management systems. I'm doing that for the Business Technology and Transformation Services Group. I'm a strategic planning vice chair for the Virginia Water Environment Association. So there's a lot of stuff you can do outside of work on your free time, right? It's called non-billable work. But that's, in my opinion, sometimes that's where you have the fun. You learn on the job, like we were talking about. You research, you do your homework, you learn cool stuff, new technology, and you're always, when you go into a room to talk to a client, you better know what you're talking about, right? So you always need to make sure that you are on tap with all the latest trends and technology in the space that you're playing in, and you learn on the job. There's never a dull moment. And then finally, you're part of something good, whether it's a small project team, whether it's going to Nepal and building shelters there for people who need rehabilitation, or whether it's managing indoor air quality data for Bank of America. You're doing something good. That was it from me, guys. This is Adam Gersh. He's the manager for university relations. Please take down his information. I think, Mike, you can share the presentation with the team. That's me and that's him. So either of us, feel free to reach out. I'm the campus lead for William and Mary, so I could be your first line of defense, but some of the more nuanced questions like what are the offices that are offering internships right now? I'll probably have to work with Adam to get you the answer for that. Or if you want to know if there is a webinar coming up in Arcadis that talks about Arcadis and its capabilities and the Global Shapers program and all the other stuff, Adam puts together these webinars that students can participate in, just as information sharing, ask their questions and things like that. So Adam would be a good contact. So that was from me. Any other questions? Did I cover everything that we said we'd cover?
Thank you for a great presentation. My question is, how were you introduced to Arcadis, and what was the process you went through to get your position?
Sure. I would love to answer that question. I was introduced to Arcadis because my husband used to work there. He was with a company called Malcolm Perney. Arcadis took over Malcolm Perney, right? So he used to work on all these cool projects when I was doing my MBA, and we would discuss it, in our house. And then he'd say, "Hey, I'm putting together this plan for Virginia Beach, and what are your ideas?" I'm like, "You got to pay me for that." My ideas. So he and I have this competition thing going on. My GPA is a little higher than his GPA, so it's fun, right? So he was working on the Virginia Beach project with Esteban, who was my ex-boss, and Esteban is a vice president now. He's the president, I think, in Arcadis for a certain division. He was leading the technology solutions for Virginia Beach, and he said, "I think you should meet Esteban. And it'd be a great opportunity for you to potentially talk about what you've done for HP and talk to him about it." And at that time, also, I was working on the strategic plan for the Virginia Water Environment Association. That was pro bono, right? I was not getting paid for that. But through that, I was able to meet a lot of industry folks, including Ryan Nagel, who was the operational excellence lead for Arcadis, and he was also the project manager for the Virginia Beach program. So he knew me, he knew my work ethic and what I'd done and everything. So it was, I didn't have to work too hard to impress him. And when I met Esteban, he loved me, I loved him. He was great. He'd already had a conversation with me on the phone, and I talked to him about my experiences with HP, and I was leading a program for business process improvement for Nestle at that time. A lot of the work that I was doing collaborated or colluded with the kind of work he wanted to do to build his business transformation practice. And all he asked when we met at Panera Bread, I think same time, 3-4 years ago, was, "So you want to work for Arcadis?" And he has a really thick accent. I said, "Yes, absolutely." And that's when I started hammering him with questions on, "Hey, I read this about Arcadis, and this is your client strategy, and how do you do this, and how do you do that?" And even now, my other colleague who was in that presentation, in that interview, says, "I don't understand if it was you who was interviewing Esteban or it was Esteban interviewing you." But it was all about, knowing how they do it for me. And I think sometimes when you ask those kind of questions, your employer knows that you've already done your homework. They know you based on the questions you ask. And I'm famous for my questions, I'm sorry to say. I always ask questions, a lot of questions. So it was that. And then I started working. I needed a sponsorship. I needed a visa sponsorship. And he said, "That's not a problem, we'll do it." And I want to share a personal story if it's not so. He said he's going to sponsor my H1 visa, and I was waiting on that. And what happened was, because my permanent residency paperwork was being processed at that time, there was some kind of a snafu with my H1 paperwork. So Esteban decided to wait until my paperwork was processed. So he extended my start date, which was in October actually 2011, to when I actually started, March 2012. He was kind enough, and that's Arcadis for you. I mean, it's mostly a summation of the good people who work there. It's a great company, it has a great culture, but it's mostly a summation of great managers, right? So he decided to move my start date from October to March, just so he could accommodate my papers coming through on time. And it so happened that I got my permanent residency much before my H1 ever had to come through. So the point is that it's a flexible company. It takes care of your various life situations. And right now I'm here. I sometimes go pick up my kids from the bus. I work from home in the afternoon sometimes. I don't have to be at a certain place if I don't have to be at a certain place, as long as the work is getting done, right? I was talking to Ryan, I was talking to the dean, I was getting emails, just I have to do this, I have to send this email out. I call my colleague, she's doing it for me right now. I have to check on the work. So the work is always on, but it doesn't matter where you're doing it from, as long as you're doing it. You know? So that's how I got it. Long story short, that's how I got into Arcadis.
How long are typical projects? Are they months, weeks, years?
I hate to say the consultant answer, it depends. But if it's a billing process implementation, it probably takes around a year to 18 months. But if it is a rebrand, right, I just need to know what your design is for a rebrand of my product, a rebrand of my organization. We can probably turn it around in the next 3 months. But the implementation and the change management will take a little time. A design of a bridge, a year to 18 months. A design of a pump station, 6 months. So again, it depends on what the scope, the timeline, the deliverable is for every project.
And during that period, are you on the client side a lot, or is it just, does it depend again?
Yeah, it depends. Because if some clients want you on site as staff augmentation, we work on the client side. Sometimes there is a trailer that we put in the client wastewater treatment plant. We work in that trailer. We go meet the client, come back. You know, it's really intense, really busy for a certain duration of time. Most of the projects I've worked on, I've been to client sites, talked to them, understood their issues and requirements, done workshops, come back to my workplace, pulled up my sleeves, rolled up my sleeves, and I worked. So it really doesn't matter where you're located. It could be a national client, it could be a regional client. Sometimes when it's a long-term engagement, they want the project manager to be accessible to them. There's an issue, there's a pump station deficit, there is a line break, there's a water main break. I want my project manager right here in the next 30 minutes to be able to fix it. I don't want him in California, right? So you need to have that access, but at the same time, for non-emergent situations, you have the ability to work in your organization, wherever it is, in your office, and then meet the client at a scheduled time. It's generally like that, mostly like that. Yes?
To come back to my question at the first presentation, do you have any engineering background before becoming a business analyst?
Me? No. But my husband is an engineer. Most people in Arcadis are engineers. I don't know the exact split of how many engineers versus how many pure MBAs, but there is, it's design is predominantly engineering, right?
Yeah.
I don't have an engineering background. Do you?
I told her, that's why I asked you a question.
It doesn't matter.
I told her, but I want to work in business analyst, and I come here because I have no idea about engineering or something, but I'm concerned about sustainability, and so I come here to hear something.
In my opinion, we don't need engineering skills to be a business analyst or to work in Arcadis, which is a purely engineering, mostly engineering firm, right? I think we are looking for that translation of what it is that a business person can bring to the table. Yes, it will take you some time, take me some time, to understand the technology behind remediation. What's in situ remediation? Are they using microbes? Are they using chemicals? I don't know. I need to study that, right? But how much is it costing the client? Is it the most sustainable solution? Of course, I'm going to have my technical experts advise me, but as a project manager, I will use their advice, but I will be in a position to weigh my pros and cons and make the final recommendation to the client, because I need a business perspective for that. Sure.
Any final questions?
Actually, I have a comment. Who attended the mindfulness class yesterday? What poses did she use during this?
What's that?
Pose there.
We talked about in mindfulness how you kind of, the way you present yourself, the way you carry yourself.
Oh no, I'm self-conscious now.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, can I show you? When you do this, like you're doing Superman, or you're doing this, that shows that you have authority. It shows that you know what you're talking about, you're knowledgeable, and you're credible.
You guys should have told me this.
And because you were doing that naturally, everyone was like, so now you have an example, right?
What should I not do? What should I not have?
You were perfect. No, I'm serious.
So really,
you were engaging.
What should I avoid?
I mean, when you want to be that way, that's what you do.
Okay.
When you want, like if you're going into an interview, you want to show that you are, oh God, I had 3 hours of sleep. Give me a minute.
Confident.
Thank you. Confident and engaging.
Yeah.
So you're fine. But then you don't always have to be that way. When you're ready to relax, then the other poses are like maybe you cross your arms, you're sitting down, you're doing this.
Yeah.
And that makes you a little bit more open.
Open.
Right.
We have this class, I don't know if you guys have it, on business communication. Communication for managers. Yes. Where we were graded on how we stood.
Oh
Around with 2 feet like that. On the ums and the and the fillers that we used. Man, that was a good class. Trust me. And the professor, he said, for every minute of presentation that you do, a corresponding hour of preparation you need to put in, whether it's creating the slides or doing your homework or whatever. And I still hold that mantra down. And I'm generally very successful in my presentations, whether I talk in an informal setting like this or with the client or in a conference, right? It works. The preparation, the posture, you're not standing there and improvising. Sometimes you improvise, that's fine, but you know the key points you want to leave your clients out with. I think that was a great class.
Make sure you guys check out the EQ, emotional.
That's a good
That's
one.
on the 18th. That's a really good one.
Why it matters.
Why it matters.
Do you think you want to come back to school?
Come on back. So,
Well, thank you.
Any final questions? So before we close out, Supriya, thank you so much for being here today. Obviously, Arcadis is an amazing organization, but I think all of us would equally say that you were just as amazing. I mean, just your passion.
I went to a good school.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, we're dealing with companies all the time. If, you know, everyone was like you and how you approached this and how you connected with our students, how you given everybody your contact information, given everybody the campus contact information, it would be, everyone would have no issues connecting to companies. So on behalf of your home, William & Mary, and the Mason School of Business, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And Alumunus, thank you so much for stepping up as student ambassador. And you know, we had a great meeting earlier with Dean White, and we're going to try to get connected within the classroom as well, Arcadis. So this is not the only time you'll see Arcadis.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have you back. Hopefully we'll be visiting you. And we look forward to learning more about the opportunities this summer.
I would love that. I would love that. I had a great time in school, and this is one of the very, very minor ways I can give back.
We appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.